So yesterday was election day in the US, and we all knew it was going to be a really tight race, and Democrats were, as they always do, going to use abortion as a main issue, asking for votes. And yesterday morning, a friend of mine, Meghan Murphy, posted an article about why she was voting for Trump and how she justified that as a vote for women's rights. And I don't agree with everything that Meghan puts out, but I really support her voice, and I really like, that she's out here saying different things. And when I read this, she said a couple things that really, really resonated for me, and I immediately had to share. She said a lot of things, but what she said that resonated with me. Let's talk about the abortion issue, which is something that matters to me because I support women's bodily autonomy. I do think women should have the right to choose whether or not they wish to keep a pregnancy and give birth. I also believe women have always had this right. I think it is inherent to women and not up to the government or any law to decide. She is the sole master of her body. She went on to mention that women have always terminated pregnancies since the dawn of time, since all we know about herbalism, about midwifery. In the 1970s, there was a major push among women, maybe even earlier. I don't remember when the Jane Collective was started. Could have been the 60s, to put abortion in women's hands. And the dominant narrative of life pre-Roe v. Wade was that abortions happened with coat hangers and women bled to death in back alleys. These stories are incredibly tragic, and they really show the importance of women having access to clinical medical abortion. But untold were stories of women taking termination into their own hands through herbalism, through menstrual extraction, through acupuncture, through peri-massage, and stories like the Jane Collective bringing abortion into the hands of lay women, truly like doctors teaching women to terminate and them holding space for other women to terminate in their living rooms. So this idea that, the state can give you the right to control your own body is completely bogus. The state does not ordain your bodily sovereignty. That is a natural right, an inalienable natural right for all people, bodily sovereignty. And so, I'm staying up late last night watching election results come in, can't sleep, nervous, don't know what's going to happen. And a friend of mine responds to me in my DMs after I had reposted Meghan's story. Just that part that I agreed with, not even all the shit that she posted about why she voted for Trump, just the part about how women's bodily sovereignty is a natural right and not one that the government can give or take away, and that menstrual extraction exists and self-abortion has always existed and always will. My friend is someone I haven't spoken to since high school. She's somebody that I've interacted with on a very limited basis on social media over the, last godly 20 years since high school. And I know that she's a nurse, and she is because she's in healthcare, she's going to have a certain standpoint. She initially DM'd me with this really aggressive, angry energy, telling me that, she's witnessed women die because of Roe being overturned. She suggested that because of my belief, I should bleed to death in a hospital parking lot and then see how I feel about reproductive rights. And she also told me that she hopes that my astrology charts come in handy the next time I have a medical emergency. So, my first reaction to this is that I have a boundary about being spoken to in a demeaning way by someone who's not a close friend. If we don't have a level of intimacy in our relationship, then I'm not available for your random feedback. This is not a 2014 Facebook public flame thread. And you don't get to come at me with this energy of, you're the devil and you're the reason that Roe was overturned, and it's beliefs like yours in menstrual extraction that are responsible for this Trump victory. Like, be so for real right now. You do not have any grounds to speak to me like that. We don't know each other like that. And if you did know me like that, then you would take a different tone, because when my friends come to me to give me feedback, they do it in a loving way, even when they're angry. And I love that. I love conflict. I'm an Aries. There I go, using astrology again. That is how I use astrology. I don't claim that astrology is the science of how everything works. I think it's just this really incredible storytelling system that helps us to process things that are in our unconscious mind. And I truly and will always believe that the unconscious mind is the underlying layer to all of our health. So in a way, I guess she's right. I guess I have a belief that astrology can impact our health, in the sense that I believe that our psyche can impact our health. I would never and have never offered a pregnant friend of mine who's having a rough time an astrology chart reading in place of a menstrual extraction or an at-home abortion or support for her clinical abortion. I know that I believe in something that is really woo-woo and hokey, but I just believe that the unconscious mind actually does matter, and it actually does have a really big impact on our health and well-being overall. I'm not against having debates with my friends, and I find it really enlivening when my friends bring feedback to me and something they want me to think about. But this energy was basically just like, I'm going to throw you away, because I assume that because of this belief that you have that women are sovereign with or without the state's endorsement of their right to abortion, you must be against abortion. You must be against doctors and nurses. So just like right off the bat, I have a major issue with the projection and the use of language that is so demeaning and so violent in its imagery. And secondly, I just feel like it's really important for me to say, because I have a podcast about healing outside of the medical system, that I don't believe that doctors are the authorities over women's bodies and that we must outsource our care, whether it's minor, from skin care to cold and flu care, all the way to cancer care. I did feel the need to defend myself to this chick. It did get under my skin a little bit, because I have been an advocate for access to abortion since I discovered women in my life close to me who had needed abortions when I was around age 13. And so I would call myself a pro-choice activist from the age of 13. It was actually the issue that turned me into a feminist and got me turned on to class politics all around. I have worked as a paid campaigner for NARAL, and I want to remind everybody that NARAL as an organization was originally founded to repeal all abortion laws, not to make abortion legal, but to repeal all abortion laws. I have donated thousands of dollars to Planned Parenthood. I have volunteered for Planned Parenthood. I have participated in marches. I have lobbied my state Congress in the state of Indiana, Washington state, and at the national level in Washington, D.C., in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. I have written articles in support of the right to choose. I don't know how I could be more of a model feminist when it comes to the right for women to terminate their pregnancies on their own terms. But that's not the point. The point is that as soon as you think that somebody's not on your side and that they're on the other side, then you can start insulting and demeaning them, regardless of how much effort, time, and money they have dedicated to the exact same cause that you are supposedly fighting for. I have been really working for the last couple years on not taking things personally. And so when this happened, my initial reaction was, let me set a boundary. You can't talk to me with this much disdain and judgment because we don't know each other like that. And, even if we did know each other like that, I know you wouldn't be saying these things because my friends don't talk to me like that. And the second thing that I thought was like, okay, let me put myself in this chick's shoes. She works in healthcare. She says that she has watched women die or otherwise have poor outcomes in the direct aftermath of the overturn of Roe v. Wade. So she's angry. She feels that her side is losing. She's hurt. She thinks that someone that she knew or associated with has the type of ideology that is directly responsible for the anger and fear that she's now feeling. And, maybe even she may have been seeing my astrology content and my How I Healed podcast that talks directly about stepping outside of the medical industrial complex. And she may have been harboring a judgment this whole time. She may have a secret resentment against me that has been building up because she sees what I do as nonsense or occult or just hooey of whatever type. And so this is now the time to air that grievance. And when I think about it that way, I have a lot of compassion for her. And I remember where I was the morning in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected for the first time. And I was weeping and I felt like I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't face the world, felt like my neighbors had betrayed me because back then I identified as disabled. I had rheumatoid arthritis and bipolar disorder and eczema and psoriasis and Sjogren's syndrome, endometriosis, clinical anxiety, all of these chronic diseases that I was managing with the ongoing intervention of the medical industrial complex and its agents. And so I felt like my neighbors didn't care about me. They didn't want me to have Obamacare. They wanted me to die. So when I remember the place that I was in at that time, it's a lot easier for me to extend compassion and remember that this is a deja vu situation for a lot of people. Now, for me, I feel like we got 4 years of Donald Trump, who was kind of a terrible leader, especially in the beginning, but nevertheless didn't do the Nazi stuff that the Harris campaign has been promising us in the last 2 weeks that he would roll out. Given that, I don't feel the same fear in 2024 that I felt 8 years ago waking up after the surprise Trump election. We really all thought it was going to go for Hillary and it did not. And I don't feel sad. What I feel honestly just really concerned about the lack of running water in Asheville. I feel so much sadness and upset about all the destruction of property and the destruction of the land and the dead animals in my neighborhood and in the land where I live. And I feel really discouraged every time I pull a freshly washed dish out of the drying rack and it's still covered in grease because I am washing dishes by boiling bottled water and then washing the dish 2 and 3 times and rinsing it with more boiled water. And it's still fucking greasy because I am not a human dishwasher and I am apparently running water is really critical to getting your dishes clean. That's what I'm upset about. I'm not thinking about Donald Trump. I'm not thinking about, what's going to happen if the election results are contested and if violence arises. I'm just really taking it one day at a time still. I think a lot of us in Western North Carolina are probably in that same boat. But I felt inspired to make this video because I really want to hold compassion in my heart for this friend. I certainly don't want to unfriend her or block her. I don't want to return the same insults that she gave to me. If she came to me with legitimate criticism of what I had posted, explaining to me how the idea that women are sovereign beings is incorrect, and here's why. The idea that women do have control over their bodily autonomy when they take their health into their own hands is wrong, and here is why. then I would be open to the feedback. I would probably not change my mind, but I would be open to the feedback. Because it's not, I don't need to take it personal, and I don't need to protect myself from the opportunity to take it personal because it's not personal. It's, talking about like someone else's fucking Instagram post. And so I feel like sharing that this happened because I really want to invite everyone to remember to be gentle with each other and to try really hard to put yourself in another person's shoes. I don't think that this chick knows that I haven't had running water in like 45 days. Maybe if she did know that, then she might not have told me that she wants me to bleed out in a hospital parking lot. Just emotionally, I have like a lot going on, so I don't really need to be insulted and demeaned on top of it all. But I need to keep this identification with her in my heart. I need to remember that she is me and that I am her and that we are co-creating each other. And this is important to me because what happened in 2016 after the election was there was a lot of discord. I unfriended people that I had been friends with for years when I found out they had voted for Trump. I wholesale unfriended a lot of people in my own family. And why did I do that? The results after 4 years were that didn't make a difference. And unfriending those people didn't expand the amount of love that I received or was able to give to others. It didn't protect me and give me like boundaries or increase my safety. It just increased the division in my country and the persistent belief that both sides have that there's just no way for us to come together. And I think that there's got to be an opportunity this time around to remember that who is leading the country does matter for sure, yes. And who you vote for matters. But on another level, no, it the fuck doesn't. It actually doesn't, and things don't change that dramatically each election cycle, and thank fucking God for that they don't. Like slow march of progress is what we're looking at. Fascism just simply wasn't instated overnight in 2016. It wasn't. There's no evidence for that belief. That is a story that you're telling yourself, and ask yourself if that story is making your life better or worse in the telling of it. But if I can pray for this chick, if I can like ask God to be her comfort right now, as God has to be my comfort in these times, and I can remember to accept her judgment, like she is completely entitled to her criticisms. And what if her criticisms are coming from a place of love, of wanting for us to be in harmony? Those criticisms actually being the expression of fear that we are not one. But me, I know that we are one. And so I can hold her anger at me or at the rest of the world, and I can hold her criticisms and invite them in and ask, like, what is the truth to these criticisms? What opens up when I ask, is her point of view actually the true thing? Is there truth in her point of view? And what happens when I believe my own story so much that there's no room for her story? So with that said, like my story is very clear to me. I have a podcast that is about natural healing and about bodily sovereignty. It's called How I Healed. I host it with midwife and herbalist Mary Lou Singleton. We've invited so many guests to talk about how they healed themselves with or without the help of the mainstream medical industrial complex or its alternatives. And the stories are incredible, like stories of women healing breast cancer, stories of women healing liver failure, of overcoming depression, addiction, chronic illness. I mean, me, I don't have arthritis anymore. I don't have arthritis, Sjogren's, endometriosis, psoriasis, or depression and anxiety. I don't have those things. I don't have those symptoms, and I don't have that identity, and I don't take any meds. So it is true that you can heal yourself, and I've just known so many people that have done it. And if you want to make doctors the guide for you in your healing journey, that's totally legitimate. But for me, my story is that you came here to heal, and that doctors are not the highest authority on healing, nor do they know more than you do about healing yourself. Doctors do not have all the keys to safe and reliable treatment and care. That's why we have such piss poor outcomes. And, you know, if we're going to limit it to reproductive health care, like America is I think the worst of developed countries for maternal health outcomes. And that's not for lack of intervention. That's because of the interventions. That's because of the constant intervention in birth and the industrialization of birth. The state cannot grant or take away your natural rights. And healing and taking care of your body and choosing what you do with your body, it's a natural right. So I can't beat the drum of fear-mongering around abortion or the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I can't, because I know that women can abort on their own. And anybody who wants to learn more about safe home abortion practices, I highly recommend this book, Natural Liberty. It has a long list of herbal abortifacients and emmenagogues. Emmenagogue meaning to bring your period on. So this would be a great way to ensure your bleed if your bleed is just a little bit late. You know, if you're like 6 weeks into if your cycle's now 6 weeks long, this would be a great option for you. Then longer than that, then we're looking at abortifacients. So in this book, we've got guides to all the herbs that you can use, a very detailed look at menstrual extraction, how to perform it, what you would need to do it safely. We've got yoga poses that can induce spontaneous labor, and acupuncture points that can support termination. This is a really, really good resource on how to stay safe and sovereign. So in closing, I just really want to go back to this idea of inviting God to be our comfort during these terrifying times and these times of uncertainty. Whatever the thing is that's triggering your fear right now, whether it's the lack of clean water or the election or your job or whatever the thing is that's got you afraid, remember to call on God, because God wants to be our comfort, and God has a plan for humanity. God has a plan for you individually, and God has a plan for humanity, and God can work through anyone. He can work through who's in the elected offices, and he can work through you, and he can work for your fucking friend who voted for the wrong person. And that's my story, my story, because I believe in God, and I believe that there is an architect to this universe and to our lives, and that we are here as expressions of that architect's creativity. But I also just want to invite, for myself and for anyone else who wants to join in this, accept judgment. Okay, I see how your judgment of me points back to our interdependence. You wouldn't be making this judgment about me if you didn't hold a core belief that we are interdependent and our personal choices affect each other. I love that. We are interdependent. I love your judgment. I love your judgment because of what it says about our interconnectedness, our oneness ultimately. And for me going forward, I'm just going to really try not to judge anybody who is mad or upset about this. Just going to really try to remember to put myself in other people's shoes in the next few weeks. Try not to create any more division than is already there.